campus because we have been doing a lot of work in Boston. Unfortunately, I wasn't here this morning because I was at a meeting in Dublin about RPL. And out of interest, does anybody know what RPL stands for? Or how many people know what RPL stands for? Okay, that's what we kind of thought, that it wasn't that well recognized term. RPL is recognition of prior learning, and this is a kind of a little bit aside from my main talk. But RPL is one thing that we do well at UL, and one thing that is included in our programs. So what RPL is about is for people who haven't gone through a traditional university education system, that in entering a program, whether it's a level 8 or more commonly into a level 9 program, that we actually that we recognise other learning that they've done, whether it's informal learning or whether it's work experience or different things that they've done in their career. So it just gives more flexible entry into the programs that we're offering. And that's the kind of thing that I want to talk to you about today. I just want to talk to you a bit about the type of educational offerings that we have at the University of Limerick, and particularly within my unit, which is the unit of continuing and professional education. So I'm going to start just by giving you a couple of examples of networks, industry-based networks that are existing in Limerick, and how we've worked with them in a variety of different ways. I'll talk a little bit about Springboard. Are people familiar with Springboard? Yeah, so I'll just give an overview of Springboard and how we've used Springboard and some of the types of programs that we're offering through Springboard. I'll give a specific case study about how we work very, very closely with one particular firm to address their skills needs, and then a few other examples. So we'll start by looking at Limerick for IT. Limerick for IT is an industry-based network, or an industry-driven network that's based around Limerick. And Limerick for IT was formed back in January of 2014 by senior management at companies, and not necessarily IT companies. In fact, there were more manufacturing companies within Limerick who were very concerned about their ability to bring more work into Limerick, to do something for the region, and also to supply the skills needs within their particular industries. Since 2014, we've created closer to 400 jobs. This is an older presentation, but there is the potential to do a lot more. And we've done that really by a very close collaboration between the University of Limerick, between our colleagues in Limerick Institute of Technology, LIT, and working very, very closely with industry. So we've looked at a couple of things. We've looked at how to encourage young people into the whole space of IT. But we've also looked at using Springboard programs to specifically upskill people to areas that companies where there are skills shortages and where they can attract more jobs to the area by saying that there is abundance of a particular set of skills. So Limerick for IT has worked really, really well. We're just kind of revitalising the network now. We have another Springboard call coming out. We started doing what we're calling Tech Tuesdays. If anybody is from Limerick, our first Tech Tuesday is going to be the first Tuesday in February, where we're going to go out through a rugby club, linking with primary and secondary schools, just showing kids to the cool technologies and talking about the types of courses that they can do through IT. Limerick for Engineering was kind of a spin-out of Limerick for IT. So Limerick for Engineering formed about a year later, and Limerick for Engineering was specifically about manufacturing skills. And again, you can see the names of the larger manufacturing companies around the region who were finding that they had shortages of skills. So it's a network between the industry, between ourselves at UL, LIT, and the educational training boards, and it's to try and have a joined up thinking about how do we address those job shortages and what can we do. One of the main things that we did in Limerick for Engineering last May, we put in place a showcase, kind of an event like this in a hotel, where we got over 20 companies just to show the cool technology that they had. We put over 1,000 students with parents through the doors. I'm not sure the impact that it had on LIT, but across UL, our engineering courses, the points went up by an average of about 20 points. So it was really bringing home to kids that there are great opportunities in technology, there are great jobs out there, there are interesting jobs, They're not just jobs for people who don't have social skills. And again, the thing that kills me, you talk to school kids, I don't want to do engineering because I want to work with people. And you think, what do you think we do? But very successful, and we are now looking at the next round of that, and also at working with programs like the Springboard programs and other upskilling and reskilling programs just to try and address skills. So it's something that's working very well, is growing very fast, and we will probably bring it in under the umbrella of the regional skills forum. So there have been forums set up in each of the regions looking at skills and addressing skills, and this really is an ideal example of how that can work very, very well. One of the other things that we're using well, and UL has the largest number of Springboard courses of any of the universities, we're using Springboard very, very well, and we're using Springboard by working closely with industry. So any of our Springboard courses have been developed with companies in mind, with particular skill sets and with particular, very often, job vacancies in mind. And for people, again, do most people know about Springboard? Yeah, for people who haven't heard of Springboard, it really is a way to upskill people from the live register, but to upskill them for real jobs. So it's not just we'll teach you some science or we'll teach you some programming or whatever it is. It's really identifying where are their skill sets. And I'm going to give you an example of how we did that with very, very close collaboration with a company that turned out to be very successful. The primary audience for skills sets is people who are unemployed, but because of the shortage of ICT skills, anybody can come onto an ICT skills course. So there are requirements that you need to be unemployed for a particular length of time to go on most of the Springboard courses, except for the ICT skills course, where they're encouraging people to change careers, to look at IT as a career, and that's when you don't come from a job or even take on some of the IT courses while you're working. The Springboard courses are primarily 1 year long and less than 60 ECTSs. So the objective of Springboard is to enhance the collaboration between universities and industry, primarily with job creation in mind. It's all about job creation. That's just a little bit of the website for Springboard. It's all centrally managed. There are a range of different programs. You can see some of our programs there: higher diploma in software development for middleware, lean systems and supply chain programs. So we have a wide range of programs, focusing to a large extent in the area of manufacturing. And I just have here just a summary of all of our Springboard programs. Last year we released a program in data analytics and software development, so we have a number of students on that. All of these guys are looking for work placement, so please come and talk to me afterwards if you have vacancies. I'm going to give you an example of that middleware integration program, because we put that together for a particular company and we work very, very closely with them, and I'm going to just talk about how we did that. There's a general software development program, mobile and secure cloud computing, quite a number of manufacturing programs, and again this would have come out of our link with the Limerick for Engineering with manufacturing companies, programs in composite materials, automation, digital fabrication, mechatronics, and we traditionally would have had a strong set of programs in UL around the areas of project management, entrepreneurship, lean, supply chain management, Six Sigma, so those type of areas. Again, our traditional programs that we would have had in UL, where there is still a demand and industry are still looking for graduates with these skills. But what I wanted to kind of focus on, just to give an example of how we can work with companies, is a particular program that we put in place for General Motors. And we started looking at it in June of 2014. We had been working with the General Motors people through the Limerick for IT. And in June of 2014, in fact it started a bit earlier than that. I was actually away on my holidays at Easter when I got a phone call. I was in Crete, lucky me. And got a phone call from a colleague through Limerick for IT, who was in the States, saying, can you do this? Can you give us, we need these skills. If you can say you can have 20 people with middleware integration skills, we're going to commit that we can bring those jobs to Limerick. So he was calling me from the States. He was making commitments at a high level within his organisation, and pretty blindsided I had to say, yes, I'm sure we can do something for you. So we saw the opportunity. It was very time sensitive and it was very skills dependent. So it was quite a challenge. The hurdles we were facing. The request was outside the normal Springboard cycle, because the programs had already been selected for Springboard and for the ICT skills. The skills required by General Motors weren't all within the skill set within the University of Limerick, so we didn't have everything that they were looking for. There's a shortage of ICT skills and staff nationally, and we needed people who had some level of IT training in order to come onto the programme. and General Motors wanted the program to start in July. So that was what we were faced with early in June of 2014. With cooperation from the Springboard people, we were able to repurpose an existing Springboard program. So we were able to use some of the core modules on that and supplement them with the additional pieces that we needed for this company, for General Motors. We worked very closely with General Motors, and believe me, very closely with General Motors, to globally source people for some of the skill sets that weren't available within Ireland. And by working with a program like Springboard, it made that possible. It would have been very difficult to do it without the funding that was coming behind this and the funding from Springboard. So we worked very, very closely, and literally across the globe. We had people through the Irish Centre for Software, through anywhere we had contacts, we were looking for people to deliver just particular sets of this, not everything, one or two particular skill sets. We ran a joint recruitment campaign, so it wasn't us advertising the program, it was us with General Motors advertising upskilling for employment, and that was very, very important. So we were bringing students to the table, they were bringing students to the table. There was a joint selection of students. There were students that General Motors said, these guys are ideal, and we said, sorry, they're just not going to make it onto this program. They don't have the skill sets. We were bringing people along, and General Motors was saying, not sure if they'll actually fit. At the end of this, I'll give you one very good example where we pushed them on something that actually worked really, really well. And we also developed in UL an accelerated program approval process. Anybody who's here from a university knows how slow and how laborious it can be to get a program approved. We put in place an accelerated approvals process for this type of a program, which we don't use often, but we use it when we need to use it. General Motors became actively involved in developing the program. It wouldn't have happened otherwise. And the only way, if somebody's out there thinking, oh, that's a great idea, we can get the skills we want, you need to put resources behind it. You don't just give a university a spec and walk away and say, that's what we want, to go ahead and do that. We had daily conference calls, and that was daily conference calls for 6 weeks up until the program launched. We met, a couple of times a week, different people met in different places. We worked really, really closely together to develop the program. As I said, we put in place a new policy that allowed us to accredit the program within the right time frame, and the HEA through Springboard were flexible in allocating the support for the program. Now it worked for them because everybody who went on the program ended up working in GM. And that's 100% employment, and that's exactly what the Springboard program is designed to do. We were able to integrate some of the external training material into our program. So we were able to put in place some pass-fail modules where people simply needed to complete whatever the industry training was, or we were able to put learning diaries around different pieces of training where people needed to complete a particular piece of training and then show that they had taken it on board and show that they were able to implement it. Because one of the differences between a university program, between an accredited program and training, is that you have to have quite rigorous assessment around the university program. So in order to get credits, you need to have shown that you have actually taken the material on board, that you know how to apply it, and that you know what it's about. We had individual academics, despite the myth that we all take our summers off, we had individual academics who actually worked through the summer, and we ran this as a boot camp. So in July we took on board about 20 students, and they were with us in the labs and with us in the lecture theatres 9 to 5 for about 6 weeks before they transferred over to General Motors. So it was hard work on all sides. And we had a central coordinating function which is through my office, that made it happen. And without that, it wouldn't have happened, but without the collaboration from the academic departments, it wouldn't have happened either. Some of the feedback, I love this course, I'm really appreciative of the opportunity to be enrolled in the course. I can't thank you enough for creating this opportunity for me. And one of the important things on this is that the industry people, the General Motors people, also minded these guys. So we repeated this, we're on the second round of this program. We have people who would not get through most traditional interviews. We have people who don't understand. We have some very bright people in these programs, but we also have people who don't understand how to go to work. And part of this whole experience for them was teaching them how to go to work. We had people who came onto the programme who could have taught some of the modules, and we insisted that they stayed in the classroom, because in the classroom they became tutors, and when they transferred over to General Motors they became supervisors and managers. And General Motors not only got the skills, but they actually got a working team, a group of people who could actually work. And again, these were people who by and large were on the live register. Success factors, a funding mechanism, shared goals. We all wanted this to happen. We wanted to put people through this. We could see the benefit in doing it. Shared risk. It was a risk from all sides. It was a risk for us and it was a risk for them. And effective communication. So, further examples. We've taken that model and we have worked probably not as deeply with Northern Trust, and we now have 15 students on site with Northern Trust who have been through an upskilling. Again, they're people who have come from the live register and have been through an upskilling back into employment. In recent years we put together a programme for Intel, an upskilling for their technicians, a slightly different type of programme, but again it's working very closely with industry. Again, it's collaborative in that some of the modules are actually taught by Intel, some and accredited by UL, where we put a module moderator in place to look at that process, and we've put students through. We have, the last speaker was talking about blended learning. We have a blended learning program with Infineon that's internationally delivered to Infineon across the globe, and they spend 1 or 2 weeks on site as part of their program. We've a fully online MSc in supply chain operation that we developed in collaboration with Dell. We've done a lot of work with the IMDA. There's just a list of programs if people want to find out about any of those. We've done a lot of work with FNUS, SkillNet, so we're working a lot with SkillNets. I think the beauty of what we're doing is that we're educating adults, we're using flexible teaching and learning methodologies. Some of it is fully online, some of it is a boot camp if that's appropriate, or else it's blended, and we're getting results. We're putting people into employment, which is really part of our very strong focus. Just briefly, I was just asked to say, we're also working in general in the whole area of supply chain, given that this is manufacturing and supply chain. So we've done a lot of work with APICS. My colleague Yvonne Delaney, I think, was wandering around here earlier on, some of you might have bumped into her. So we're the main home for the Southwest, for the CPIM and CSCP APICS programs. We have done a lot of programs for Dell in supply chain, which are graded so that people can come in at a lower level and work their way up through a BSc over a number of years, and that's on the NFQ level 8. So I leave it at that. If anybody has a question, and I have a few flyers on some of those programs if you'd like to find out a bit more about them.